This is Sybert signing into Red Alert 3 on the map BattleBase Beta in the north as the Red Allies. This is PiKa. And in the south as the Yellow Empire. This is Dimon. Dimon playing so much Empire recently that he kind of feels like an Empire main who sometimes plays Soviets rather than a Soviet main who sometimes plays Empire. I don't know if that's actually true, but in the replays of him that I've seen recently, that's how it's been feeling. And I also want to take a minute to discuss some contemporary events. Actually, we're not even going to really discuss them. I'm going to ask some questions. So if you are watching this in the future or you have no interest in current contemporary events, which is the double current, you can skip forward. So from my understanding, in Russia, triple refinery coming out from Dimon. In Russia, the sort of like opposition leader has been maybe wrongfully jailed by Putin, which from a American perspective, it seems like that's par for the course for opposition leaders to Putin. But I'm curious as to, and then there have been protests and clashing in between protesters and police. But I'm curious from an actual like Russian citizen perspective. What is your take on current events? Is it no big deal? Is it something that really affects you? Because, like, obviously in the U.S. there was lots of protesting and there's civil unrest for various reasons in many cities last year, but each of those things didn't affect every place the same. So there were lots of cases where stuff was happening in one city, but if you didn't live in that city, there was just no sign of it. And like lots of different places have lots of different problems. So I'm just curious, from a Russian civilian perspective, what is this January or this last couple of months been like for you guys? Has there been any change to your day-to-day operations? I mean, you still gotta go to work or go to school, pay your bills, take care of your family, all that kind of stuff. So I'm just curious as to how recent events have shaped your lives. At any rate, let's get back into this game. As you can see, a little bit of third refinery blocking from Dimon. Now, Dimon did go for a fast 3 refineries, and he did not produce enough Imperial Warriors to contend with the amount of Peacekeepers that PiKa has produced. PiKa, a little bit low on power, may have to sell off this multi-gunner turret in his main. It decides instead to keep it around for a little bit longer, but also just drop the additional power plant. So that does slow down everything else from PiKa for a little bit. Couple of jump in, jump out by these Imperial Warriors, but this building is busted regardless. And more and more wall segments now going to be coming down for Dimon. He's trying as much as he can to get as much value out of this location as he possibly can. And he actually is going to do a little bit more damage, mostly just in delaying the refinery timing. And I think walls and Imperial Warriors, this is probably cheap enough. Although if he keeps producing Imperial Warriors, maybe it won't be cheap enough. He's going to get a couple of Peacekeeper kills. One more Peacekeeper kill, and that's probably not what he was looking for, but we'll see. Couple of Javelin Troopers, couple of Peacekeepers going down as the Tengus get a drop on this location. The walls are still blocking off this refinery, and PiKa is actually attacking the walls that are not really blocking the refinery first. Vindicators come down. We just saw the Advanced Aeronautics upgrade get purchased by PiKa, so he does now have the additional bombs inside of these Vindicators. 1 Apollo, 1 Vindicator, and they are going to take off in tandem. Of course, it's going to be 2 Tengus, but they're just going to go for that Vindicator, and that was a very slightly missed opportunity there for Dimon. He almost got that Vindicator, which definitely would have made that attack worth it, but instead he just lost the two Tengus and got no Vindicator for it. But shutting down that Vindicator would have been great. Unfortunately for Dimon, he did not manage to get that. And things have kind of stabilized now that we've got 3 refineries for our Allied player, 4 refineries for our Empire player. But the trouble is that Tier 2 tech up and the Tengu numbers for Dimon. This is a point where a lot of Empire players have trouble even going to be using the Harvester, pulling it off the line just to get some extra damage on those Peacekeepers and force them into the civilian structure. Can the Javelin Trooper get eliminated? Yes, that's a great catch by Dimon, killing off that Javelin Trooper, completely eliminating the threat on this refinery. Very well handled by Dimon. He took something which was almost a refinery ending situation and salvaged a 4th refinery up and operational from it. Of course, not having the oil derrick hurts him a little bit, and he's been missing that oil derrick for quite some time now in this game. But overall, Dimon has reached a 4 refinery economy in quite a good place. He's got up to his tier 2 on his mecha bay, and now the game can really start to get cooking. I assume, oh wow, there actually is no tier 2 on the way for our allied player, so this is pretty delayed tier 2. Of course, PiKa did go for the War Factory first. That's a bit of a safety move, and I would not be surprised if he got his 4th refinery at some point, but I should expect a tier 2 to come out before that. These are Apollos out here on the water, not actually a prospector going out for a 4th refinery, and this is really bold by Dimon. He is going big eco. So there have been some players in the past who have had theories, I guess, maybe even potential builds where it's like, I think if we go big eco, we can get to a place where we're stable with a bigger economy than our opponent and win that way. I don't know if this is actually going to work for Dimon. He's got 3 tsunami tanks there in the south running around just trying to chase down that Riptide, but at the same time, he's going to be potentially losing 2 refineries. No, the second one is safe. The one in the north will fall to these Javelin troopers, and goodbye refinery. It was not managed to be saved there by Dimon. Cryo shot going to be eliminating another harvester. There's the stop command given at the wrong time, maybe, as Dimon was unable to save that harvester. Doesn't have another harvester queued up. He could transfer the one from the high ground down to the low ground, save himself a bit of time, or excuse me, save himself a bit of money, but not necessarily a bit of time. And back to 4 refineries is Dimon. He paid for 5, but he's only getting to use 4. Apollos, Vindicators, and IFVs all going to be assaulting this refinery out here on the right side. Tengu's transformed, but they get caught by the Apollos. One Tengu down, the other one trying to bait the Apollos into the Strikers, and it doesn't quite work as well as Dimon would like. PiKa with good unit control does keep his Apollos alive for now. The harassment will continue, and for this game, a lot of this for PiKa is about trying to curb Dimon, because if he lets Dimon go too far with this big refinery play, then it's just going to be game over, as Dimon is going to outpace PiKa in every way possible. Dimon may still actually be able to force PiKa's hand, and yeah, actually, well, there's step 1 of forcing his hand, getting 3 IFVs not quite for free. He loses a Tengu in exchange, but getting 3 IFVs pretty much for free and saving this refinery. Can he save the refinery out on the water? He doesn't save the harvester, but the refinery, it looks like, will be safe. Dimon, on the other hand, going to be potentially just pressuring PiKa directly through the front door. No, maybe not. He's going to hold off for another minute, and still having trouble stabilizing. Loses another harvester. PiKa putting some serious pressure on Dimon and cutting down Dimon's forward kind of like aggressive position. He's really curbing Dimon's enthusiasm as Dimon is halted at the front door. I do like this little split of peacekeepers in each building. Of course, they can be dealt with by the Imperial Warriors, but it'll take a minute to clear out those buildings. Refineries still offline, even though there is no immediate threat from PiKa. Dimon now going to be clearing out the buildings in the middle. And I know I said earlier it seemed like things were kind of stabilizing, but now things actually feel like they have settled down a little bit. 4 refineries, but only 2 of them actually online for Dimon. He's getting his harvesters 1 at a time, but now there are 2 cryocopters and, of course, Vindicators and Apollos for PiKa. So he has gone up to tier 2. He's got a couple of Guardian tanks. This army can be crushed by what currently exists for Dimon, but if PiKa plays this out smart, which losing 1 Vindicator is not ideal, he doesn't actually get the Striker either. The point defense drones being the saving grace for that Striker. PiKa going to be stepping forward. This is a potentially very dangerous move, as he may not have enough firepower to contend with Dimon to can the tank busters. Actually, it's just... oh no, it's 3 tank busters. I thought there were actually going to be more tank busters in this army. If there had been, I don't know, 5 or 6, which is basically double the amount that he has. You can really eat through those tanks very quickly. I love this Riptide off to the side, circling around on a very long path, looking for an opening or an opportunity to make something happen. Cryocopters get the freeze on the Harvester, but the Tengus go for the Transform, and they will be able to clean up the Riptide. So one Harvester saved, one Harvester lost. As the Vindicator comes in, will this Striker actually be able to catch the Vindicator? No, the return to base is a safe enough path that actually PiKa's going to try and get maximum value out of this Vindicator, out of these Cryocopters, and he is going to get it. Maybe even gets the power plant as well. Could even just go for another refinery. This triggers a bit of a push coming in from Dimon, but it's just 4 Tsunami tanks. They do have point defense drones, so they will trade better against these Guardians than they would otherwise. But the Guardians with that laser painter are going to be able to eat through these Tsunami tanks. The superior numbers really doing the work here, as the Tsunami tanks do manage to escape 2 of them after a somewhat unfavorable trade for Dimon. Goodbye a second Apollo. If he can catch all 3 Apollos, that would at least give his Tengus some more viability. And one thing that Dimon has not been able to do is repair up his units. He's had so many units taking a lot of damage and then remaining on low health for quite some time. And eventually, he is going to want to get them healed up. As you can see that he's actually rotating in individual units. But PiKa has bought enough time to end up at Athena cannons. A couple of Tsunami tanks cutting to the north side of the map. They're going to be going for a bit of Harvester harassment out here on the water. PiKa going to be not necessarily in a good position to hold this off. He's got 3 Apollos there, but where the Cryocopters, 3 Cryocopters will be able to deal with these 2 Tsunami tanks, and the Tsunamis are going to try and escape, but because the Apollos have been rebuilt, pretty much no amount of Tengus is going to be able to save these Tsunamis, so that's just free value for PiKa. Unfortunately for Dimon, not really anything he could do when they're that far away from his main army. It was a good attempt, but ultimately it didn't work. A couple of Javelin troopers inside of this building, even sending one of them outside to laser lock it down wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea. Riptide does get cleaned up, but there isn't even a refinery there for that Riptide to attack, and it's actually going to be both Javelin troopers going for the laser lock, and they're not quite going to get it to finish off the refinery, but they are going to jump inside of that building to do a bit more damage. Good on Dimon, destroying that building completely. Might as well take this one down as well. Big point defense drones called in on those Tengus and those choppers. As a cryo shot fires off and locks down the refinery, PiKa decides to go for the guaranteed kill on the Harvester first, and then the refinery after that. 2 Athena cannons out in the open, a little bit exposed, but I don't think Dimon has really the position or the units to capitalize on that. This refinery does still stand at about half health, so this could potentially be, oh, it's actually going to be a Mirage tank harassment coming in here. Not something you see very often, a shrunken down Mirage tank going for a kill on a refinery or a Harvester like this. Additional refinery does get caught out by these Apollos, so PiKa knows that this water refinery is being taken by Dimon. He doesn't have anything in place right now to deal with it at the current moment, and PiKa once again striking down another refinery of Dimon. Dimon, other than those couple of engagements, has done a pretty good job of keeping his units alive and viable, which means losing the economy is not the end of the world. He still has an army on the ground to contest with PiKa, but if PiKa continues, PiKa's doing this great thing where Dimon's army is almost always out of position to really deal with PiKa's attacks, and in this case, PiKa is just getting so much value with his units in this case. I mean, he is going to potentially be losing this Vindicator to the Tengu, and the Strikers are going to try and jump on the Athena cannons. They clean up one, but the other one does survive. For some reason, the Guardian tanks and the Mirage tanks not actually there. There's going to be the crushes. The Tank Busters cut through a couple of the Guardians, but the rest of the Tank Busters get eaten up, and these Strikers can't even do anything. They're just going to get destroyed. The Honorable Discharge doing some last bits of damage, and that actually came out a lot more even than it necessarily looked like it was going to be. I thought PiKa was going to have a much stronger victory there, but having one Mirage, one Guardian, and one Athena left over is not what he wants. There's actually still a healthy number of Tengus flying around the map. As I said, PiKa's done a very good job of striking where Dimon is not, and we see this again here in the south at the water expansion. The power plant goes down, the harvester gets eliminated, and now the refinery is going to fall. It's a little bit of tit for tat as Dimon did take out the water expansion of PiKa, but PiKa kills off that refinery. And PiKa's done a really good job of staying on top of the harvesters of Dimon, killing off harvesters, killing off refineries, and goodbye. I didn't actually see the Tengu's still attacking that harvester going for the expansion. Goodbye, multi-gunner turret as the Mirage tank steps forward. This might be a bit of a mistake, but he's going to try and just transform and go for the Apollos so he can eventually clean up the cryocopters, which is going to be the kind of safer move there if he can get the cryocopters. Two Riptides with the Cryogeddon do join forces here in the main base of Dimon, but they're not going to be able to do anything more than kill off a couple of power plants, which is not the value that PiKa's really looking to get. That was almost a waste of a Cryogeddon considering the number of army units you could kill off if you got the Cryogeddon on top of the Tengus after they transform, where either your opponent is going to be forced to split up their army in quite a significant way, or they're just going to die to the Cryogeddon. But a couple of power plants, you know, it's not a game-winning move, but it's value if you can get it. One IFV does go down. Tankbuster Surprise going to be joining these Tengus. And, well, the Mirage tanks may make short work of the Tankbusters, or actually the Tankbusters might make short work of the Mirage tanks, as actually at the edge of their range, the Tankbusters get the kill on almost two of those Mirage tanks. Great transform of that chopper as he does get some damage out on the Apollos, but more importantly, he just scares the Apollos away. The Vindicator barely surviving as these units trading off that heroic status back and forth, and Dimon with very few variety of units just doing way more work than he really should be able to. That was a bit of a mistake, flying those Apollos in there. Big transform of most of the Tengus, one of them still in the sky, going to try and chase away those IFVs, but since the Mirage tanks got cleaned up and the Guardian tanks are no more, there's literally nothing on the ground for PiKa to deal with this Empire army. Great control by Dimon. It felt like earlier on in the game, PiKa was the one in absolute control of this game, swinging Dimon this way and that. Dimon never able to really answer to PiKa directly, but now PiKa is the one getting pushed around and kind of strong-armed by Dimon. Dimon with the big transform will be able to escape with the majority of the Tengus. The Tengus can fight the Mirage tanks, but the Mirage tanks are always going to do that extra bit of damage. The Athena Cannon slowly working her way down the ramp, cleaning out building after building, and hey, I guess if you can slowly make some kind of progress, but surely this Athena Cannon is just going to be getting killed off by these Tengus. Somehow these Apollos are cleaning up just Tengu after Tengu, even though the Tengus have the better numbers. The Apollos, with their speed and just firing while moving, the Tengus actually losing a couple of forces there, which is unfortunate for Dimon, but Dimon gets the kill on the Athena Cannon. And again, if he chooses to jump on these Mirage tanks, he's going to incur heavy losses, but he should win the fight. Tsunami Tank going to be pulling some of this damage away from those Tengus, but at the same time, Nano Deflector is going to allow it to heal up. Great control there by Dimon to take exactly the one shot and try and back away. He wasn't actually able to escape, but he tried to mitigate the damage from those Mirage tanks. Final Squadron going to be calling in. It's going to mostly miss, but we'll have to see how the Striker and Tengu army are able to come together, as they may actually be driving back into the Final Squadron territory. A little bit of splash damage on the point defense drones, but not the end of the world. The IFV gets eliminated, and again, eliminating the... Well, not really again, as I haven't actually said it this game, but eliminating the anti-air is such a critical part of this game for both players. Goodbye, Apollos, and this could be an opportunity. No, the Mirage tanks do escape. The opportunity was not big enough for Dimon to actually capitalize on it, and actually... Wow, those IFVs actually keeping up with the Strikers fairly well. And this game transitioning into a weirder, a low econ kind of a match, as both of these guys unable to keep their refineries up and running for very long. The Harvester harassment has been pretty consistent. PiKa doing a lot of Harvester killing, a lot of refinery killing over the course of this game, but Dimon striking back, winning where he can. A couple of Javelin Troopers getting some great damage off on these Tengus. Any extra damage on the actual Tengus is great. Of course, point defense drones are going to mitigate that somewhat, but the lower health Tengus, the faster they explode. And the Mirage Tank, can he get one? No, not quite one final shot. And this is a great Cryogeddon by PiKa. Gets 2 Tengus and all of the Tank Busters, but can he actually capitalize on it? Yes, he is going to be able to step down with the Mirage Tanks, with the IFVs to eliminate that little bit of a force, and that was a great catch by PiKa. Seeing the use of the Tank Buster Surprise and then immediately stopping it and catching a couple of Tengus as well. And these little bits where PiKa is just shaving off Tengu after Tengu, they're starting to add up. Good control by PiKa to try and maximize the damage on those Tengus, but it's not necessarily going to be enough to actually stop the Tengus. Out onto the water, this Riptide is uncontested, even though there's a striker hovering overhead, just watching that Riptide tear down that refinery. Trading Harvester for Harvester in this case, but as long as the refinery survives... No, never mind. This refinery might actually lose either a second Harvester or lose a second... Oh, it's so close! This Riptide's so incredibly close to killing off that striker, but it just won't happen. And now... the second... well, never mind. The striker goes down. The second Harvester survives, though. So he didn't lose out the full cost of 2 Harvesters, but PiKa did lose that refinery. Maybe sold off the refinery and the command post, or the hub. But at any rate, they're both gone, so the economy is stunted once again for both players. An unused refinery. No Harvester being restarted, as both of these guys have taken just so many Harvester losses over the course of this game. PiKa sharking around the map with a couple of Apollos, looking for openings, looking for opportunities to do a bit of damage. The Apollos skating back to the north, looking for, I assume, Tengus, but, you know, tsunami tanks, so you can't do anything there. IFV's watching the kind of eastern expansion for Dimon. That actually is an ore collector. That's not a sudden transport or something disguised as an ore collector. This has been a match with some really great control by both sides. The MCV heading back to the high ground for PiKa, going to be reestablishing that tech. As MCV, you know, denying the Tier 2 and the Tier 3 from the, well, the barracks also. But really, the War Factory is what I was thinking of. The Athena cannons. That is 2 fully heroic IFVs for PiKa. Cryogeddon firing off once again. He's going to get the Harvester and the refinery almost certainly. The War Factory as well may end up going down, forcing the sell-off as he gets the refinery. Not the Harvester, though, but he gets the refinery and the Mecha Bay. So a huge reset to Dimon. He has to spend the $2 grand on the refinery and then the $750 on the upgrade. That's a big cost for Dimon, including the $2,500 to replace the refinery. Dimon is in a tough spot, and he actually may be moving his MCV to take kind of a stronger position near refineries that aren't, or ore nodes that aren't almost depleted. He may actually continue over this way, although he may just unpack on the water. Okay, so he was just escaping the Mirage tanks. He didn't actually care about better position with better ore nodes. Couple of Tsunami tanks coming in. Precision Bomber kills off the Tank Busters. And 1 Prospector goes down, but if you have to trade out 3 Tsunami tanks, then that is not going to be worth it. Dimon has been defeated. His army getting absolutely picked apart there And I thought maybe he had one last rally in him, but he did not. And PiKa is your victor. That was a slugfest, I think is a good way to put that, as these two guys going back and forth. But this early eco advantage from Dimon, right, up to 10 minutes, and then they cross back over as PiKa, with just the constant harassment, was able to keep Dimon penned long enough that he was actually able to garner more resources in the end. At the very end of the day, only 12,000 credits of difference between them, which isn't necessarily a huge deal, but 500 credits per minute. But really for PiKa, a lot of that income comes after the 10-minute mark, keeping Dimon down. Dimon trying to hit back with equal amounts of harassment, but not quite able to get the army wins against PiKa. And PiKa does take that game. So that will do it. Thank you all very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And this is Sybert signing out.